to get in and talk particulars about assessment of the way guys played or anything like that. But I think that we have multiple players that we have confidence in that that can get the job done for us, and I think that's the bottom line, not so much individually. Go ahead.
And outside,
yeah, I've been droning on today.
At outside linebacker, you guys released Corey Nelson, and you have Camus and Nathan Jerry and everything. Like, how has that been playing out? Like, where do you see that position?
Well, it also plays in with losing Nigel Bradham for the first game too, because rather than just fitting in one spot, now there's multiple spots that we have to fit. I'd probably say the same thing as the nickel position. We have confidence in a number of players, and I think that we're also set that we can employ different matchups depending on how a game's going to be, what the matchups look like, how we think a game's going to play out. But no matter what we think, proof is going to be in the pudding, and it's going to be up to the players to perform well. And just because they come out of somewhere at the end of training camp doesn't mean that that's set in stone for 16 games. This is a performance business, and everyone has to perform.
What would be the decision to release Corey?
Yeah, you'd have to. That's probably more of a question for Howie and Doug. He was a good, hard-working guy. He was a veteran guy. He was well liked on the team, but it was a very difficult time of year. There's all kinds of different reasons that guys make teams or don't make teams, get released and don't. I think that's not the last you'll see of Corey. He'll find a landing spot in the NFL, and we wish him the very best.
How do you go about deciding how much to play Brandon Graham in Week 1?
Well, a lot of it's just going to depend on him. We were able to get him back on the practice field. He was like a caged up lion or something. I mean, he just had so much energy out there yesterday. But how he responds coming back on a day, coming back on 2 days, what the trainers think, what the doctors think, and then with us, how we think he can perform. All of that will go into what it looks like, whether he's going to play, whether he's not. The number of plays, all that will be determined over the course of the next, 11 days, 12 days.
What emotional impact does it have for the defense to get a guy like Brandon back on the practice field?
Yeah, we expect a lot from our defensive linemen in general. I've said before, the defensive line is the engine that drives this defense. We rotate players up front. We expect them to come in and give us a lot of energy. We expect them to be able to win in pass rush without blitzing, penetrate, make things happen against the run. Brandon does all of those things. So a real important guy, and certainly a guy that, we didn't miss him in the meeting rooms, but there's a difference having his energy on the field. It was good to have that back, even though it wasn't very much yesterday. It was good to have that back on the field. We look forward to more of it.
How does it short of the normal week of preparation for the opener? How does that alter how you guys approach this coming game on Thursday? Because you're kind of in some ways preparing for 2 games.
Yeah, for sure. It does alter it, and we've been thinking about that since. When you win the Super Bowl, you pretty much know you're going to open up on Thursday night, and you look at that last preseason game, and a lot of times there's 10, 11 days in between there sometimes to get ready for the opener. This is short, so we added a lot of Atlanta periods and OTAs. In mini camp, there was some stuff. A lot of our adjustments that we made and things that we've been practicing in training camp have been with an eye toward this game, because once we break that last preseason game and the next day is a Monday in a regular season. Even though it's a Friday on the calendar, it's a Monday in the regular season, and that clock starts, and and Monday is Tuesday, Wednesday, and all those things start creeping up, and you don't have that 2-day sort of rest and take your time and get ready and get an extra day of practice the next week. All those dynamics are out the window when you're coming on 7. So we've made up for it in some other stuff. Even last couple of days, we've been working a lot of Atlanta type schemes But that's nothing that hasn't been occurring all of training camp, particularly defensively, and I can only speak for that.
One of the young guys you have on the defensive line, Bruce Hector, you've had him now since the spring. What has he done to put himself in a seemingly good spot to make the roster?
Yeah, he's impressed us all along the way, but I think the thing that's been most impressive, there's a lot of guys that look good early and then they level out or they fade or they can't stay healthy or they plateau, they just don't improve, and that's not Bruce. Bruce impressed us early, but going on, he's steadily improved, and he's been on the field. He's been, like he's healthy enough to be on the field. And then last couple games in particular, but particularly last game, we got him some reps up against some better players, some better competition. He's responded well in those. Those are all things you look for. He's on the right track.
Continuity with your secondary, you at least 2 of your corners back, three safeties. Does that raise your expectations for what you could do with them this year?
Yeah, I mean, our expectations are always high. I don't know that it really raises our expectations. I think it allows us, and we were sort of there last year, but it allows us to interchange players a little bit more, help us with matchups. And, look at a guy like Malcolm Jenkins. He played both safety spots for us. He played the nickel. He played the dime, and there were times that he also played the dime Mike. And it was all depending on matchups and who we had available for games and stuff like that. We have a lot of guys that are interchangeable. We've talked about some corners that can play nickel. We have safeties that can play nickel and can play down at linebacker and do those kind of things. And I think that's probably it's more the matchup thing that allows us to do it, because all those guys know the defense so well that they can seamlessly change positions. It's difficult. It's easy in theory, difficult in execution. Puts a lot of stress on the players, but they've done a great job responding to it.
The guy who kind of came alive in that last preseason game, an older guy that's coming off an injury, obviously. What do you kind of see as his role on the team?
Yeah, I don't want to get into specifics on roles because, again, I think a little bit of that is proprietary just going into Atlanta. But he hasn't disappointed us. He's a veteran player. You can see that. And, again, we expected our D-line. We expect our D-line to be disruptive. I don't think any of us thought that we were disruptive enough against the Patriots. And I'll include Haloti in there. Whether it was coach, whether it was a player, we all needed to do more. And I like the way that those guys responded the next week. We rely a lot on that defensive line to be disruptive. Haloti was in that game. It's something he's done his whole career. And we look forward to him continuing to do that for us.
Preseason being tough to get a gauge on your own team. How much stock do you put into the Falcons? How much do you monitor them during the preseason, and what can that tell you about how they've changed?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly look at them. You're looking at, they added a new wide receiver, but again, it's hard to really put a handle on. Are they just trying to get it through a game, or is that a new package or a new scheme for them? But it's certainly useful information. We don't discard it.
Coaches often talk about the difficulty of this time of year where there's looming cuts. What are some of the realities of this week that maybe doesn't get highlighted enough?
I think that gets so much attention. I don't know that it gets highlighted enough. I think there's a dignity that's involved in dealing with those guys. And I said this last year that we were getting ready for the Super Bowl, and we showed a picture of the Super Bowl trophy. You see all the fingerprints on it, and you say, regardless of what your role was on this team, your fingerprints are going to be on that trophy. Whether you were on the practice squad and you were helping the offense, whether you were an inactive player, whether you were active, everybody had a role. And I'll take that back and include training camp players. Even if you don't make this team, you'll have your fingerprint on the success of this team going forward. People people don't make teams for a lot of different reasons, whether it's not a good scheme fit, maybe a numbers position, maybe an injury. It's very rare that a guy just flat out isn't talented enough. I mean, that certainly happens, but perseverance is a big thing. We've had a lot of players that have been undrafted, that have been cut. I think Chris Maragos was cut like 3 times before he made a roster coming out. I mean, he was like 3 straight training camps that he got called to the head coach's office, and that guy's been able to persevere and have a great career. So that happens all the time. I think that, I think the only thing I'd say, people looking on the outside in, I saw something where somebody called somebody a scrub that was in a preseason game. I don't think that's necessarily the case. All these guys are here for a reason. All of them are here on their own merit, and all of them have ability that, in the right circumstances, with enough perseverance and maybe being fortunate a little bit here and there, that they can all get some traction. It's without a doubt the worst day of this job. To see guys that work as hard as everybody else that literally don't get on that bus. You certainly feel for those guys, but at the same time, you're also appreciative for what they've done, and know that they've played some role in the team. Okay.
Thank you.
Wow, that was a long answer.
How you guys doing? Right.
Mike, with this short week to week one, typically you have that 10, 11 day period. How much does that change the preparation?
It definitely ramps it up, and getting home late on or early Friday morning and then turning around quickly and having really trying to get a jump start on Atlanta and also be prepared to play the Jets. It certainly accelerates the week and the preparation.
Are Carson and Nick still splitting first team reps?
Yeah, they split yesterday. Yep.
What's the logic behind that? I mean, the regular season being 10 days away and everything.
We're just trying to get everybody to prepare to play, in the regular season whenever they're available to play.
What have you seen from Christian Hackenberg?
Christian's done a good job jumping in and learning the system, and he's making the most of his opportunities, the reps that he gets. I mean, with 4 guys, there's a limited amount of reps, but seeing him progress.
Do you expect that they'll split reps in the week before the Falcons game, or do you think at that point you'll give one guy all the reps?
I think Coach will make that determination next week, but right now we just want to make sure that everybody's we're still in training camp.
With Nelson Aguilar and Corey Clement both back out of practice, what do you want to see out of them from this week?
Well, they just need to get integrated back out there. I think get their legs back underneath them, and it was kind of fun to see them both back out there again. So from that standpoint, it gives everybody a little bit of a lift, and I think they're both feeling good, and we'll continue to progress.
Really flashed big Thursday night. How is this camp going?
He's done a really good job. He's a guy that we added in training camp, and I'm glad that he's here, and he certainly has put himself in a position to be really competitive for a roster spot. Made some good plays the other night, some other plays he's got to improve on. Some easy things that we can get cleaned up, and I think he's focused on getting that done, but he's made some plays, and he's certainly shown up in the games.
How do you evaluate a guy like Josh Adams, who's only been able to play a little bit in those 2 games, but has looked productive?
Yeah, he's a guy who's done a nice job in the games. Like you said, he's missed quite a bit of time with a couple of nagging things physically, but with his size, and he's run well, he's run strong, he's made guys miss. I think he's been assignment sound, so he's a young player that we're enthused about.
Mike, Ertz was a huge red zone weapon for you guys last year. What makes him so good in that area?
I think that, number one, he's got excellent size, and his ball skills are unique. And he just does. He's a guy that I think is really quarterback friendly in terms of his body language is easy to read. So when he's setting up defenders, and then he's able to body guys up and create separation at the top of routes, we know down in the red zone that everything is going to be contested. And he's got really strong hands, excellent ball skills, and can create a catch radius that makes it difficult for the defenders to get around.
Tyler Humphrey looks like he's going to get some reps Thursday. Talking to him in the locker room yesterday. Is it difficult for a player like him to kind of guard against trying to do too much in a game to kind of prove that he belongs on the roster?
Well, I think that would be the hope, that we can get him some reps. We just have to wait and see how the week plays out with him physically. Yeah, I mean, it all depends on how the hamstring responds. So.
Marcus Wheaton's another guy who's been down with a hamstring, and he's more of a veteran player, so you're able to see some tape and previously with him. Is that more helpful as far as the evaluation, or does he need to be out there?
Yeah, I don't think missing time is beneficial for anybody who's competing for a roster spot. So, it's disappointing when that happens, but that's part of the game. So, he's been working really hard to try to get healthy, and he was out there running around a little bit yesterday as well. He's one of those guys that's starting to feel better.
How much does it help having Nelson back as far as getting the whole offense, starting to get the whole offense back together going into week 1? I mean, you still obviously don't have Alshon, but
right.
Do you feel like you're getting closer, I guess, to having the real?
Well, I saw a couple guys in uniform that I recognize, that have made a lot of plays for us last year. So from that standpoint, it's exciting, and I'm glad that those guys are feeling better. We know the kind of players that they are and the impact they make on our offense. So it's good that they're making progress physically, and hopefully we'll be ready to go for Atlanta.
Follow up, was it kind of hard to get a real reading on the offense based on the fact that you didn't have a lot of these guys for the first 3 games?
Yeah, I would say that's fair, for sure. I mean, we've been missing a lot of, you know, what you could call critical pieces to the offense for the majority of camp.
Shelton has gotten an opportunity to get a lot of reps in the preseason because of all the injuries. Your thoughts on how he's played and how far he's come since last year?
He's come a long way. So we're pleased with the progress and the work that he's put in. I mean, nobody puts more into it than Shelton. He really does, you know, invest not only the time while he's here in the building, but his personal time when he's out of the building, when he's not required to be here. I know how much he puts into it and know how much it means to him, and he's really worked really diligently to you know, make himself a better player. And it's nice to see that work pay off, you know, with some plays in the game. So, you know, again, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. So he knows that there's things that he still can do better, and we're working toward that end.
Do you see similarities with the jump that Nelson was able to take last year or the year before into last year with Shelton coming off a rookie year and into this year?
Yeah, I don't know if I would make that comparison at this point. But, you know, that I think that speaks to Nelson and first of all, that, you know, his talent level, and he did the same things. He's here early and stays late and invests his personal time in his game, and certainly took the coaching and was able to make a big jump. So, but I always hesitate to compare guys to one another.